Welcome back, everybody, once again to another episode of TJ Talks the News. Today is September 16th, 2021. It is a Thursday, I think. I hope. I don't know why. Yesterday, I could have sworn it was Friday. I'm supposed to be going to work today, but I'm still on quarantine, despite not needing to be on quarantine. And, I feel so very tired today. I did a ton of work yesterday, so I think I've talked about, I help my dad with this podcast that he does, which if you want to check it out, it's called The 4 Bs, The Constitution and American Life with the 4 Bs. The 4 Bs refers to their mascots in their colleges. I think they're like 2 badgers and 2 bulldogs or something like that. And it's just 4 old white dudes talking about the Constitution. Sometimes they do bring guests on, like experts and stuff, and scholars in the field. If you want to watch any episode, I definitely recommend the episode on critical race theory. I think the guest that they have on is just fantastic. That or the one where they have the expert on who talks about why Congress totally fucked up when they refused to have the sergeant at arms arrest Trump, and the people ignoring the subpoenas and stuff. During his presidency. And it's so weird because this guy looks like Mr. Rogers, and he looks like just this straight edge. You would imagine he would be like ultra conservative, and then to hear him say like, "Hey, Congress should have arrested Trump," it was really like, whoa, okay. But so those would be the 2 episodes. I forget which episode he's on. I'm sure it has to do with separation of powers, probably the episode. But anyways, I help my dad with this podcast. Mainly I help them with like the intro, and I add music. I do any editing that needs to be done. I try to improve the audio because they don't know how to do any of this stuff. And it's actually a fair amount of work. And I thought it was for my dad's retirement thing. Like teachers, whenever you retire, some districts have a plan where you can do like a retirement project and you continue to collect pay. So his retirement project was doing this podcast thing, but he's decided to like continue doing it, and now they're getting offers from places that want to host the podcast. And yesterday it was like a ton of work, and he has been kind of tossing a little bit of cash my way, but I want to tell him, like, first of all, it's just it's a lot for me to take on, given the compensation that I'm getting for it, but that's not really my main concern. My main concern is that the quality of the product I'm offering them is not that great. I'm just an amateur YouTube guy who knows how to do really basic video editing. I think they should probably look into getting somebody who can do like a proper intro, graphic designer and stuff. But yeah. I also don't want to tell him that. I don't want to like hurt his feelings. Be like, hey, I can't do this for you anymore. But it's getting hard to manage, and I could probably be using that time to go and look for other job opportunities that are actually going to pay me decent. There actually is an opening at my local library that I've been thinking about applying for. That's I think that would be a job that I would be well suited for. I being around books all day. I mean, I do have to interact with people, but who goes to the library these days? Homeless people. Yeah, I do know that my parents actually had quite a few students who would go because their parents didn't have books, or sometimes they wouldn't even be like allowed to get on the computer to like search the internet for stuff. So, and also it was just an escape for a lot of these kids to get away from tumultuous home life, or for some of them, they're homeless. It tripped me out whenever I learned that. You know, the kid you're sitting next to, everybody makes fun of him because he's smelly or whatever. Well, it's because he doesn't have a home to go to. Let's get to the news. Reddit news. All Anchorage ICU beds full as Alaska COVID hospitalizations keep rising. So, not surprising that another COVID thing is top news. I saw that the number of COVID cases is declining basically globally, except in the U.S. So, I mean, that's probably not entirely true, but it was a World Health Organization report that just showed like overall cases are declining, but in the US they're actually remaining quite steady or even increasing. Uh, and I did see California released a thing showing that basically all students are back to in-person learning now, and they were celebrating this. Newsom, I think it was published on the .gov site by Newsom, just kind of celebrating that we're back to in-person schooling, and also that we have really low case rates as well. Now, when I saw this, my initial thought was this is premature. The virus kind of seemed to be spreading like westward, so it kind of started in Florida and it's just been slowly crawling westward, um, westward and northwestward. So now we're seeing stuff like in Idaho and Alaska and whatnot. So I wonder if it just hasn't quite hit California yet. Maybe the safety measures that we have in place really are doing their work. All I know is I get multiple notices daily from my kids' schools saying, somebody has COVID, which that's actually a good thing because it means that they're taking steps to try to mitigate the risks. I just worry that because I've seen it, we've seen it far too many times. Right? I remember all the commercials that were running last fall. Was it last fall? Yeah, last fall. About now that the pandemic is over, kind of stuff. People were kind of getting ahead of themselves. So I think that may be the case here in California as well. And I still don't think it's a good idea to have schools open right now. But according to the data, at least we're doing pretty well. Nearly all Fox News staffers vaccinated for COVID, even as hosts cast doubt on the vaccine. See, now I don't know, like if you're somebody who watches Fox News, I don't know how you can excuse this. Right, like you're watching and you hear the host say, I don't know about those vaccines, but then you learn that the host is himself vaccinated. Like, do they just tell themselves that that's not true? Do they just ignore the cognitive dissonance? Maybe they don't even ever encounter this information, and so there is no cognitive dissonance because they're living in their own little bubble. It just seems like every day there are so many stories where it's like, okay, this is your opportunity to break away from the cult, right? You can see the truth now. But no. Nope. Which is funny because yesterday there were a bunch of stories about Biden celebrating Fox News for finally like championing the vaccine. But then it turned out that was only in their off-air program, like their radio program, I think, maybe, or maybe it's their online program. I don't know. But whereas their big cable programs were still spreading the vaccine misinformation, I don't see how people haven't been like sued at this point by at least the vaccine manufacturers, right? Don't the vaccine manufacturers have standing there to sue people spreading misinformation about the about the vaccine? It's certainly hurting their profits, right? I hate that. Like, oh, what was it? Oh yeah, no, it's with the vaccine stuff. Everybody's like, oh, I can't wait until insurance companies start charging people more or start refusing coverage for the unvaccinated. And I'm just like, man, it's really sad when we have to rely on corporations to try to get people to do the right thing. Just because of the potential for abuse there, I think, and it just really speaks to how much our government, our institutions are failing us in this regard. Putin says dozens in Kremlin inner circle have COVID. I'm kind of surprised he would admit to that. But maybe this is all a ploy to be able to take out his inner circle. Like, yes, they all have the COVIDs, as they all mysteriously disappear. I don't know. I don't know why it would matter. And doesn't Russia has their own vaccine, I think, which isn't as effective as the other ones. And I think China has their own vaccine as well. I don't know why. I find it really interesting that we have all these different vaccines. And not only different vaccines, but vaccines that operate with different mechanisms, I think that's fascinating. I always hated kind of the sciencey disciplines growing up. Or at least when I was in school. And maybe it was just that I was kind of raised in this environment where it was all the kind of the world of It was like growing up in a humanities department in a college, basically. It's all philosophy and history and literature. So I don't know, but as I get older, it's like there's so many things that I would love to pursue, particularly when it comes to like space and physics. But being like an immunologist or a virologist, I think would be fascinating. Search for man at Grand Canyon turns up remains of another person. I'm guessing that that's probably quite common. The stories I've read about people getting lost in the Grand Canyon are just terrifying, and how much people underestimate how deadly it is, particularly when you get on like the bottom of the canyon. I remember reading this one story about this person who had basically they had jumped down onto this little ledge, thinking that they would be able to get off of the ledge, but once they landed on the ledge, they realized, oh, I'm too high up now. If I try to jump down, I'll probably just die. However, they were also unable to climb back up. So they were just stuck on this ledge and ended up dying. I would probably just try to jump at that point, but I don't know. Who knows, right? Who knows what you would do in that kind of situation? I'm also reminded of that one guy who, cut off his arm. World's first battery electric freight train unveiled in Pittsburgh. Is it really the world's first? I don't know about that. I'm thinking that that we've had this technology long time, and it's just been suppressed by the oil lobby, by those shady individuals. I have no idea about that, but I think I remember reading something about how technology for the electric car, because we did have these battery operated cars early on, but then they fell out of out of popularity because the gas powered cars were much better. But how this wasn't really true, and it was really just this, the oil lobby crushing their competition at the expense of the environment. COVID-19, France suspends 3,000 unvaccinated health workers. How can you be? That's my wife is really confused by this. Like, how do you make it into the world of health and then be opposed to the vaccine? I don't know. It's so weird. It's like being a teacher who's against grading. Wait, no, that doesn't make. No, it's like being a scientist who's against experiments. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a good analogy here. It's like being a cook who doesn't believe in seasoning their food. I don't know. A mathematician who doesn't believe in numbers. Like, how do you end up there? And of course, it's because first of all, a lot of these health workers are going to be like medical assistants, people with like minimal training. Um, and you find crazy people no matter where you go. Also, education is not a guarantee that you will leave intelligent or smart or wise or capable of making good decisions. It's just a piece of paper that says you attended this place for a certain number of years and paid a certain amount of money. I honestly feel like I didn't really earn my degree. I basically feel like I got by on being white and middle class. Like the story I always tell is this story. A friend of mine, he's Hmong, so kind of they came over during the Vietnam War, a bunch of refugees, and settled kind of around where I went to college, all throughout California. I think they settled some places in the Middle West as well, in the Midwest. Middle West? I don't think I've ever heard anybody say Middle West. Midwest, but yeah. And so we were taking this class as a philosophy class. The class was Religion on the Margins. It was a really interesting class, actually. About he mainly focused on, because this is kind of mid 2000s, and so there's a lot of kind of Islamophobia going around. I mean, it's still here, of course, but so he really focused on the treatment of Islam, so kind of Islam on the margins of Christian America. And again, it was a fascinating class. The professor was pretty cool. It was just a really rough time in my life. I was working 3 jobs. I had a newborn, my son, um, and again, this was after the recession, so I'm trying to pay rent and do all these things. I was also taking like 22 units. So it was a little crazy semester, and the professor had this grading policy where basically your entire grade was based on this final essay that you did, which is just terrible grading policy to begin with. And so you could argue that it's really not a problem with grades, but a problem with his grading policy, or it's really not an example of racism, but I mean that was his policy. That's the way that it worked, right? So I mean, because readers are going to privilege a middle class white English, what we call standard edited American English, even though it's not really standard at all. And by standard, again, they mean white middle class English. And specifically, it's this dialect that arose in kind of New England in the 19th, early 20th century. So um, that's kind of what we call the standard dialect, and that's what's privileged in classrooms. And that just happens to be the dialect that I'm good at, because of who my parents are and because of my background. And so I'm able to write the essays the night before and get good grades on them. And that's exactly what I did. I wrote my essay the night before. Now my buddy, the Hmong guy, of course, English is not his first language. He really struggled in that regard, but he was definitely the hardest working person I've ever known. I mean, as soon as he knew that we had an essay, he started working on it. Guy spent months on his. Went and met with tutors, did tons of research. I even met with him and helped him on it. And he put so much work into this. I got an A, he got a C. If that's not an example of racism at work, I don't know what is. And I'm not saying the professor is racism. Right? I'm talking about these things that are kind of built into the structures that kind of define the contours of our lives and the choices that we are able to make or not able to make. So I don't know. How did I get onto this? I have no idea. I got by on being white and middle class, basically. Yeah, I was talking about college degrees, right, and healthcare workers, and so you can graduate with this degree and really not know much about health. Maybe you just got by on being white and middle class. You're a good test taker. That's another way to say that. Um, I don't know. Simone Biles, FBI turned blind eye to reports of gymnasts' abuse. They seem to have a habit of ignoring women who claim to have been sexually abused, don't they? It came out recently that during the Kavanaugh uh, stuff, Kavanaugh, is that his name? Okay, I had to double check that is indeed his name. So when they were going through the confirmation process, this woman came out and accused him of having sexually assaulted her when they were in college, I think. And the FBI claimed to have done an investigation into this and found no wrongdoing. Of course, everybody at the time knew that that was not the case, but it turns out that it was even worse. Like, they didn't do any kind of investigation whatsoever. And the director of the FBI is Christopher Wray, I think. He apologized to these gymnasts, saying, "I'm terribly sorry that this happened," but it's just yeah. So then what do we do? Like, if it turns out that Kavanaugh is indeed guilty of these things, he's already on the court, and people are like, oh well, you can still impeach him. Good luck with that. I think Trump demonstrated to the world that at least when it comes to Republican politicians, just impeachment is not going to happen. Um, it doesn't matter what you do, right? You can foment rebellion. You can do whatever the hell you want if you're a Republican. If it were a Democrat, yeah, I could certainly see the justice being impeached and removed from the bench, but it's not going to happen if it's a Republican. I mean, unless of course Democrats can get a 2/3 majority in the Senate, which is good luck with that. Let's see here. Lots of companies requiring vaccinations my wife is actually having to deal with this now. So her office, and I was surprised by this because her boss is very conservative. Voted for Trump both times, very conservative, but decided that they're going to require vaccines for everybody, even the patients that they see. So if you want to see the doctor, you have to be vaccinated. Now, it makes sense because their clientele are predominantly older people. And I imagine that most of them probably already are vaccinated, but my wife is having to basically go through their patient list and call people and let them know, hey, before you can see the doctor, you're going to have to be vaccinated. I was worried that it was going to be bad, but she says that so far she hasn't really encountered anybody who's like hostile. She has encountered people who clearly seem hesitant and have a lot of questions. But like a lot of old people who are just like, I really wanted to get it, but I wasn't sure about it. Can you tell me more about it? Like, so people, I don't know, in my mind, I had kind of imagined that everybody had basically made up their mind already. But it seems like there are still a lot of people out there who maybe just aren't really paying attention very much. And just kind of, oh, there's a vaccine? Really? And it's already FDA approved. Okay, like they're just totally out of the loop. And I think that changes my perception of the people who aren't vaccinated yet. It's not necessarily that they want to murder everybody. I mean, for some of them, yeah, they want to own the libs or whatever by killing themselves and other people. But it seems like there's still people out there who are just kind of not doing it out of laziness, out of apathy, out of being a bit too busy. I don't know. Oathkeeper pleads guilty in January 6th riot, will cooperate. I will say that all the January 6th stuff has been a huge letdown. I remember reading the first sentence that was given out, and it was for 6 months. And I'm just like, are you serious? We can storm the Capitol and potentially overthrow the government and install whoever we want, and all we have to risk is 6 months in jail? That sounds like a sweet deal to me, right? We should do it, and 6 months later, if we fail, we just try again, and we just keep trying again. And some of them are being charged with minimal like trespassing, and they're going to get like a fine. And you can see in the videos, some people do seem to be kind of just wandering around, like they're like, what the hell is going on here? Again, like the people who are my wife is talking to, they're like, wait, there's a vaccine? Like, wait, people are storming the Capitol as they're in the midst of the Capitol, right? It does kind of look like there's some of those folks there. Like they maybe didn't realize what was going on. I don't know how that would be the case when you see the lines of police officers being beat to death with American flags, but who knows? So maybe some trespassing charges are warranted in some cases, but I don't. These guys, should be in jail for life at the very least. I'm not a proponent of capital punishment, so I won't go there. But and that's the thing is, this stuff doesn't really matter. These are just the pawns. They need to go after the big fish, the people who are actually in charge, who caused this in the first place. And that's Trump and probably about half of the Republicans in Congress. So this whole thing has been a big letdown. But who knows? We'll see where the current investigation goes, whether or not they uncover anything. White House offers Nicki Minaj call to answer vaccine questions. I don't even know. I wish we could just. I feel the same way about celebrities that I do about sports. Like I just want to wish them away. I just wish they would go away forever and ever and ever. Again, more companies with vaccine incentives for staff. Southwest Airline rolls out new COVID-19 vaccine incentives. Yeah. It just seems like it encourages bad behavior. Los Angeles County, okay, lots of vaccine stuff. Ooh, this one sounds interesting because it's about writing and stuff. Essentially child pornography. Ohio mayor asks school board to resign over racy writing assignments. I'm going to give you a simple choice. Either choose to resign from this Board of Education or you will be charged. Well, if it's child pornography, then the person should be charged, right? I'm going to read this just because it sounds fascinating to me. This is on MSNBC. It says the mayor of Hudson, Ohio is calling for the resignation of the entire Board of Education after high school seniors were assigned a controversial book with writing assignments that asked them to describe sexual experiences, to pretend they were a serial killer, and to describe the taste of beer. What the fuck? There has to be more to it, right? What book are they reading? The described sexual experiences way out of line. I think college class, go for it. I don't know. There's just when minors are involved, that's yeah. Pretend they were a serial killer. That I don't know. It kind of reminds me of I think I've talked about this before. When I was a tutor, we did this thing called believing and doubting. And one day we had to like either believe everything the writer says or doubt everything they said. And one day in our little small tutoring group, I had a student bring in this essay arguing that gay people are evil and should go to hell. And we're doing believing on it, and this other gay student is being asked to believe that he's evil and should go to hell. And it's like, is that really, do we want to be asking students to do that? In this case, do we really want to be encouraging students to entertain these thoughts and these ideas? Is there really any benefit to it, and does the benefit outweigh the potential for harm? I don't know. There might be something here worth doing. Maybe like a psychology class, trying to get into the thought processes of a serial killer. Taste of beer, they're minors. So, presumably they haven't had tasted beer before. Of course, that's usually not the case, but I don't know. This just seems like a weird assignment. I usually like weird assignments though. So I'm not totally opposed to it, besides the sexual experiences stuff. But you also got to be careful with these kinds of things because they can, be triggers for students who have suffered through trauma. So, yeah. Let's see here. It's not clear what charges the board members could face. David Zero, the board's president, said Wednesday that no member has indicated any intention to resign. While we respect the mayor's position within the city of Hudson in accordance with the state laws of Ohio, the supervision of the public schools of this district is the responsibility of the Board of Education. So this seems like a power struggle. In fact, I wonder if this is maybe a way. I don't know anything about the politics of the mayor or this city. It's Hudson, Ohio, so I'm going to assume that it's not that liberal, but maybe it is. But maybe it's a way for the mayor to take power away from the school board for political reasons. Even stuff related to like critical race theory and whatnot, kind of like what they're doing in Texas and what they've done in Texas. The assignment that sparked the mayor's strong reaction was a book titled 642 Things to Write About that was given to seniors taking a college credit course at Hudson High School. Well, fuck, that complicates what I said earlier about it, how it would be okay for college, because this is technically a college course being offered at a high school to high school students. So what do I think now? I don't know. And this just seems like a list of like topics to write about. Like the teacher can't just come up with things for the students to write about. I don't know. I see textbooks like this and I'm just like, well, I guess if the students don't have to buy it themselves, maybe, but most of these things you can just design yourself. I know that that's extra work, and you can also design it specifically for your students, right? Anyways, um, it just seems odd. I also don't like these decontextualized assignments where it's just like write about this thing. It's like no, we want to give you a question, something to explore, a problem to solve. Something that go do research on that and don't just like pick a topic out of the clouds and start writing about it. I mean, I guess that can be fun sometimes, but I don't know. Anyways, the book contains prompts such as write a sermon for a beloved preacher who has been caught in a sex scandal. This seems like something that would be good for like a creative writing class. Like a college level creative writing class maybe. but not one offered in high school. Describe your favorite part of a man's body using only verbs. Choose how you will die, and write an X-rated Disney scenario. Honestly, for seniors in high school, this is perfectly fine. To pretend as though seniors aren't already talking about these things or exploring these things is ridiculous, and putting it out in the open and talking about our bodies and talking about sex is we need to do more of that kind of stuff and stop being so repressed. Uh, especially if you're living in the Midwest. But other prompts ask students to write a sex scene you wouldn't show your mom. Are there any sex scenes you would show your mom? And then rewrite the sex scene from above into one that you'd let your mom read. Okay, honestly, my mom, I don't know, it surprises me sometimes. My mom is like super prudish, puritanical when it comes to sex. And I don't know why. Everything else she's very open-minded about. But I remember she used to get on to me and my old high school girlfriend about kissing at school and about public displays of affection and whatnot. So I don't know if I would be comfortable sharing any kind of sex scene with with my mom. She would probably get very mad at me if I tried to do so. At the same time, she's the one who got me into Game of Thrones, which, as my dad says, is basically just fantasy porn. So I don't know. I guess that would be the sex scene that I would show my mom, is a scene from Game of Thrones, right? It also asks students to drink a beer and write about the taste. Ooh. I mean, did the teacher actually assign these, or did these just happen to be in the book? I don't know. The book also contained less provocative prompts, just describing the worst Thanksgiving dish or writing about the perfect day as an astronaut. Yeah, it's just one of these books of lists of ideas to write about. It's a college level course. I don't really see what the issue is here. Again, besides the potential, I think for triggering trauma, so I would be sure to include a disclaimer in the course description and do lots of prep work ahead of time before having students do any of these. And I would probably supplement it with maybe like some poems that other people have written. Honestly, though, this is not something I would ever assign in my class. I'm just saying that I don't see that big a deal with it. Alright, well, I guess that's going to go ahead and be it for me for today. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you tomorrow.